What wedding moment made you think, "They are not going to last long"? When she went alone on her honeymoon. Because she booked a trip to the Caribbean despite her newlywed husband having a severe sun allergy. Edit. Because this kinda blew up and I saw some mean comments about her. She was a good friend and they had been together for some years. They married young and it didn't occur to them that it would be strange if she went on the honeymoon and he stayed behind. He was a good guy and just wanted to see her happy, and she really wanted to go on this vacation. Because she had never left the country. They separated half a year after the wedding, and my friend, the bride, told me that the marriage had been a way to prolong the relationship despite both of them knowing that it was already over some time before they got married. Kinda like a couple gets a baby to save a marriage. It really was just sad because they were a nice couple. But they stayed friends after separating. And I can guarantee that she didn't cheated on him while away. They were both really loyal. About his sun allergy, he had red hair. A really fair skin and burned up within minutes. And I mean really bad sunburn. The kind you have to go to the hospital for. He always had to wear sunglasses. Long-armed shirts and a hat. Even on cloudy days. So the vacation was not for him. Groom got into a fistfight with the father of the bride. Split after 4 months. Context: groom and bride's dad. Actually, most people in these families, if I'm honest, have pretty aggressive drinking problems. Father-in-law has always hated him. I wasn't around for what actually set it off, but it ended when the bride got in the middle. Got an elbow in the eye and the happy couple left for the night. This was in rural Canada. Not Letterkenny. But basically Letterkenny. I'd say the father-in-law won the fight though. The entire bridal party, including parents of the wedded couple, entering into a betting pool of how long the marriage would last. At the wedding reception, IIRC the best man won, Price is Right rules, at 14 months. I was the best man at a wedding a few years back. At the rehearsal dinner, his future in-laws were treating him like crap. They were bossing him around, making him do crap, and talking down to him. They didn't let him hang out with his groomsmen afterwards while the bride went out and got drunk. They are now divorced. Edit to add a little detail. Yes, he should have stood up for himself. His ex's parents were making him do crap for the wedding the next day and he was too nice to say no. For you youngsters out there, this is cliché, but you really do marry the family and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, a lot of the times. When the maid of honor professed her love for my brother during her toast at my brother's wedding, and her husband walked up to the head table, picked her up and carried her away before she could embarrass him further. They lasted about 3 months after that. My brother and his wife on the other hand are still happily married 20 years later. The groom took the stupid cake thing to an extreme. The bride had given him his bite, and mushed a little on his chin or nose. He then took a piece and mashed it into her face so hard that I was expecting her to end up with a bloody nose. Cake and frosting got up her nose, in her eyes, down the front of her dress, etc. The bride had to go get cleaned up, had her makeup redone, and was ugly, crying within an hour of saying, "I do." He didn't give a fuck. His third wedding. Same venue and same after ceremony driving away vehicle as the first two. I was at the wedding of one of my mum's oldest friends and she clearly had more fun dancing with the best man after the wedding. Long story short, they dated for a while after the divorce. The groom and best man had a dancing routine for getting into the church ceremony and they got nearly halfway through it, and I guess the groom felt they hadn't received much applause and wows from us the attendees and decided to go back to the entrance and start all over. Sigh. When the groom started off his speech by saying, "We all know I didn't want to get married, but we're here for bride and child we had together _ 1 year. 3 months later they were finished." The groom had a best woman instead of a best man. Nothing wrong with that. But her toast left the whole room in awkward silence because she was clearly in love with him. Had an old boss who was divorced. He told me once I should have known it wasn't going to last when the only happy moment I had on my wedding day was when I snuck out to smoke weed with my buddies in the parking lot. 2 friends of mine got married. And when they gave their vows, the guy started laughing at the part about being faithful. Oops. When they disappeared for half an hour during the reception. They were both saving themselves for marriage and were desperate to bone down. Which is a fine thing to want. But it turns out that was more or less the main reason they got married. They made it almost a year. The bride told her bridesmaids that she didn't actually want to get married. Multiple times. No one told the groom until after the divorce. I was kindly included in a last-minute +1 to the wedding of a family friend who I'd never met before. At the rehearsal dinner, or the German equivalent, the Polterabend, the guests smashed ceramic and porcelain items on the ground. I was fresh in Germany, so this was all pretty out of context and frightening. But my boyfriend explained that it's a tradition, reminding the couple that life is sometimes difficult and you have to work together to clean it up. The bride kind of half-heartedly motioned to the groom to sweep it up. He did a little bit. Then just moved on to talk to his friends, leaving most of the shards strewn around the yard. Additionally, I don't think I saw the couple talk to each other once over the next 3 days of celebrations. It was a gorgeous wedding. And I'm so grateful that I was invited. Really good way to begin living in a new country. But it wasn't surprising to hear that they'd divorced a few years later. I was at a wedding when a phone went off during the ceremony. In the middle of exchanging vows. It was the groom's. He took the call. They are divorced now. Edit to add. I believe it was a cousin calling to ask if they were late for the wedding. Wedding photographer here. I can think of a few. Full-blown row during dinner. Had another couple fistfight during a first dance. An infamous one for me was leaving a venue late one night, and as I'm walking to the train I can see the bride down an alley, on her knees with the best man. I was the wedding photographer for a reality TV show. End of the night, I'm having a few drinks with the film crew and the groom has come up to me and one of the producers and says, "I think I've made a big mistake." So we're trying to be reassuring and telling him it's natural to second-guess such a big decision, to which he replies, "No, I mean I think I am gay. I had them both on Facebook." The drama the next week was mesmerizing to watch unfold. I've got a ton of these stories. Edit, since you asked. Was working with a video guy who had the bride and groom on radio mics. Sat around waiting for the evening action to kick off and the video dude called me over and said, "Listen to this." Groom was talking to one of the bridesmaids about how they had to end their affair now he's married. Not a "how could you tell they wouldn't last," but shooting in an old church on the hottest day of the year. Watching the groom wait for the bride and he's swaying back and forth. Next thing he's fainted. Fallen forward and slammed his mouth into a stone step. Smashed his front teeth out. Blood everywhere. Had a bride and groom on a trampoline for photos. Groom's heading downward. Bride's about to go up. He lands on her dress just as she goes up and she pops out the top of the dress. Boobs flailing around in the air. Shot a traveler wedding which erupted into a massive brawl. Watched a drunk usher knock over a wedding cake. Weddings are amazing. I've been doing this for about 12 years and seen some sights. But I still love shooting them even now. When he smashed the cake in her face and hair. Then went off drinking with his buddies. In 12 weeks. She filed. Good thing I didn't buy an expensive gift. He complained she was mean to him throughout their dating life. The day before the wedding, all of the groomsmen and the groom's friends told him not to marry the girl. Like straight up. They lasted less than a year. The part of the vows where you pledge monogamy? The audience laughed. The most beautiful wedding I've been to ended in divorce. Venue was where the groom's father is buried and he cried as he made his vows to the bride there. Turned out he'd been cheating on her for months and they divorced a while later. Something so repugnant about marrying someone you're cheating on practically over your father's grave. To date, it's the only wedding I've been to that ended in divorce. They got secretly married at the local town hall out of spite to the girl's father, who did not agree with the relationship. This happened right out of high school and they divorced during my sophomore year at college. I used to work for an event center that hosted a lot of weddings pre-COVID. After one ceremony I saw the groom slap the butt of one of the bridesmaids in the hallway. She laughed and with a big smile said, "Oh Jeremy, you'll never change." Edit. Thank you so much to the kind people who gave me my first Reddit awards. Deleted. Deleted. Showed up to the wedding of a friend of my husband's who I knew casually. When we arrived at the church, the groom was very drunk in the parking lot, and getting drunker by the minute. I thought it was kinda nuts since it was a full Catholic ceremony which involved lots of kneeling and standing. I honestly have no idea how he made it thought that. But he did. At the reception, he proceeded to continue the drinking party, while his new wife cried in the washroom. When it was time for the first dance, he kind of stumbled around the dance floor despite a year of dance lessons. When it was time for him to take his new wife's garter off and throw it to the bachelors, he instead did a strip-tease type dance and got himself down to his underwear, in front of many elderly family members. People were shocked and talking, and all in all it was a shit show. I gave this marriage a year or two tops. They, however, are still married 25+ years later. A month before the wedding, the couple made an appointment with me, the church music director, organist, to plan music for the ceremony. Each made suggestions on music he or she would like. But no matter how many pieces were considered and demonstrated, they couldn't agree on anything, and would get into heated arguments over processionals, recessionals, vocal solos, and prelude music, even though they were all good possibilities. The bride and groom simply seemed indifferent to one another's wishes and needs. In the end, based on what I heard each of them most wanting, I offered compromises in an effort to bring about peace, selections which they finally agreed to. They were engaged, but showed no signs of being in love. I was maid of honor. Me, best man, and the couple went into a separate little room to do the signing stuff. Bride excused herself to go to the bathroom, and the groom started making pretty mean remarks about her cooking, she's passionate about, to the officiary. She came back, heard they were talking about cooking family meals together, and gave him the warmest smile. Thinking he had praised her, he scoffed awkwardly and changed the topic. That always stuck with me. He wasn't laughing with her but at her. Behind her back. They lasted 7 months. The bride and groom did the first dance, then spent the rest of their reception completely apart from each other, getting shit-faced with their own separate friend groups. The only other dancing all night was the bride dancing with her high school friends. The father-daughter dance and the mother-son dance, during which the groom was crying. The best man's speech didn't mention the bride at all and basically boiled down to groom. You're married now, but our bond is older and stronger. All of our hunting and fishing trips together are the best thing in our lives. Can't wait for more. Such a sad, desperate atmosphere. They made it a little over 1 year. Deleted. Deleted. My husband was the best man at a wedding. The bride was a nightmare. Not just during the wedding, but in general everyday life. All of the friends hated her. And she had no friends of her own. We knew it was doomed when, during the portraits, the bride was making everyone miserable as can be. The groom said, exact words, "I'll just send her to therapy. And, if that doesn't work, we can just get divorced." Edit. For emphasis. The ceremony was delayed, because the bride and groom were on the phone with the groom's mother, who refused to come to the wedding, trying to be talked into still going through with it. Apparently they had a huge and physical fight the night before. Their roommate at the time didn't come either. He told me what he saw in the house the night before was enough for him to know this wedding was doomed and they should not be dating, let alone getting married. Edit. In an attempt to answer some of these questions. First, this was about 20 years ago and we are all in our 40s now and have moved on with life since. So, I don't know why the mother wasn't there. I just remember thinking it was weird when I noticed she wasn't. And then later heard they were on the phone with her. The roommate was visibly angry when I went to pick him up for the wedding. Outright refused to come. And I think ended up moving out and basically disappearing after. He was a big dude who worked as a bouncer at clubs, and my impression was he had to go into work mode the night before in his living room and wasn't happy about it. I never heard details and I wouldn't have felt right asking for them. I am still friends, in the sense that I see them every few years, with both the bride and groom. See my comment below for how they turned out. Happy ending considering. I should also add, the years in which they dated and got married. All of us were very heavy binge drinkers. We were in our 20s and worked service industry jobs. It seemed normal almost for this much drama to be around. Looking back, I don't have the same opinions. No one involved ended up in rehab or prison and all live relatively normal lives now. The bachelor party and the bachelorette party were in Vegas at the same time. Across the hall from each other. The bride and groom got in a huge fight on the last night of the trip, and when I was leaving I said I'll see you guys at the wedding to the groom, and he replied I'm not sure there's gonna be one. There was a wedding, but they were divorced within 18 months I believe. One of my friends got married. Afterwards she looked at me, crying, and said what did I do? They were separated by the time the plane landed from their honeymoon. He was a good guy. She was a mess. The betta fish and the flower centerpieces lasted longer than the marriage. My wife got invited to a client's daughter's wedding. The couple were both drama students. Many of the bridal party were drama students. The maid of honor's toast consisted of tearful declarations of unrequited love to the groom. Along the lines of, "If it couldn't be me. I'm glad it's my best friend that's marrying you." The best man's speech was a lusty declaration of, "If it doesn't work out, call me, babe. Like the previous time you called me." Other toasts were similarly weird. A guy at the table I was seated at was a friend of the bride and said to me that he was this close to standing up during the "speak now or forever hold your peace" thing. I'm still not sure if the whole thing was a bunch of emotionally fucked up 20-year-olds. Or one big piece of performance art. My brother's ex-wife. Throughout the exchange of vows, she was looking at everyone but my brother, making sure all eyes were on her. Later, she instructed the photographer, a family friend who was cheap, to mingle and get shots of people being happy. Within 10 minutes, she'd summoned the photographer back shouting, "Whose wedding is this? I meant get shots of people being happy for me." Edit. Thought I'd add, they broke up when she cheated on him. Apparently, that marriage she was desperate for was only good while it brought her attention. Wedding videographer here. I think my favorite moment was when I was sitting at the miscellaneous table with all the randoms and the girl next to me. The groom's ex drunkenly admitted to sleeping with the groom a few months prior. I was the maid of honor. They seemed like the perfect couple. Together for nearly 10 years and had this big, expensive, beautiful wedding. Bride would have been happy with a small event but told me groom had a big family and had insisted. Alarm bells hit when I sat with her parents in the front row and realized the groom to bride ratio was so massively off. The groom had 3 best men, as well as ushers etc. His sister and one best man read something during the ceremony, and then all 3 said long speeches about him at dinner. It was all about him. The photographer was even his friend's mom. So she kept whisking away the boys for these hilarious lads shoots. The bride was ignored most of the day and in the evening he got too drunk. Spilt a drink over her wedding gown and danced with his friends. It felt more like a big birthday party than a joint event. I'd never seen that side to him. But I felt so sorry for my friend. It was like she was just there to be a prop to his plans and look good. 3 months after the wedding he began being emotionally abusive. A month after that he admitted he'd been having an affair for years. Then left. If I hadn't seen the way he behaved at the wedding, I never would have guessed he had that in him. Edit. As so many people are being kind. I'll update you. My friend hasn't been able to trust or date again yet and it's been 4 years. However, she has become an amazingly brave woman, who's traveled to some amazing places alone and is now retraining to change careers. I think she learned never to be a backseat passenger in a relationship again. Honestly, the way she handled the whole thing, with such grace and determination, makes me so proud to be her friend. She basically told him when he left that he would never see her, or hear from her, or about her again. She dropped all friends that had a connection with him after he left, and made sure he would always live his life wondering if he made the right decision and what she was up to. I really hope his dying thought is about her. And I know for a fact hers won't be about him. She'll find real love. Deleted. My best friend's wedding is tomorrow and I told her about how I've heard several wedding photographers, videographers say that shoving cake in the face is almost a for sure factor that they're going to divorce. She told me, "Oh yeah, I told him not to but he probably will anyways, so we'll see how this goes." Update. She put the cake in his mouth respectfully but he booped her nose 2 or 3 times, which wasn't huge, and they just laughed it off. I cried a couple times during this wedding because their love does seem very genuine. So sorry if this wasn't the update you were hoping for lol, but I'll give a 1-year update. I live for these threads. Anyway, I know a photographer who was offered to shoot a wedding on the Gold Coast, Australia. If you're from Australia then you know the Gold Coast, while beautiful, has a lot of Jersey Shore types living there. It's kind of like Miami but no celebrities and very very trashy. My friend is getting shots of everybody getting dressed up at the same time because the groomsmen, bride and bridesmaids are all getting ready in the same room. The groom decided to have his bucks party, bachelor, stag do, the night before, so they're all hungover as shit and snorting line after line of coke. Something that is making my photographer friend's job hard because she can't get any nice shots of the groom or groomsmen without these illicit drugs in view. The energy in the room is getting uncomfortable, so the bride asks if they could take it easy on the coke and get a couple of nice photos. The groom yells, "Shut up, cunt," and keeps snorting. The girl who got my friend the gig said they divorced like 4 months later. Another friend of mine was pressured into marrying his girlfriend of like 8 years because she dropped an ultimatum. "Propose to me within a year or we're done." He does, so they get married, but of every wedding photo she posted on Facebook, neither one of them looked happy. They divorced barely a year into their marriage. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like. If you would like to see more content like this in the future, subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified about future videos. Now check out one of these interesting videos.